The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to today's webinar. The title of today's webinar is Development and Testing for the New Style of IT. And today's presenters are Michael Cooper and Toby Marsden. If you have any questions for Michael or Toby, you can type them into the questions field on the control panel, and I will ask these questions to Toby and Michael directly at the end of the webinar. So you can type at any point you see fit. You can get access to these slides and recording of the webinar on the EuroSTAR website after this webinar is over. And you can join the conversation on Twitter using hashtag ESConf, and you can connect with EuroSTAR conferences using @ESConf. And today's presenters, you can connect with them also at @QA Cooper and @PTJ_Marsden. So now I'm going to hand you over to Toby, who's going to kickstart this webinar. Hello, Toby.
Thank you. So I'm hoping everyone can see my slides. I'm just going to give Michael access to the presentation as well. Thanks everyone for joining. Appreciate you spending the time this afternoon. We're going to go through some market dynamics and then into the solution sets that help us actually deliver against these challenges that people are facing today. So I just wanted to kick-start today by talking about some of the issues that we're seeing in the market. And I think the name of the slide kind of frames this really well. We're seeing that the real issue that we're facing in the market today is that we need to be faster. We need to react. We need to drive business change faster, and we need to be able to adapt to the changing conditions that we see within the enterprise in terms of the different projects and dynamics that are being asked upon us as individuals. And this kind of frames that in terms of the different dynamics that we're seeing. So we're seeing a huge rise in terms of Agile, in terms of a methodology. Being able to actually address the speed of delivery that the business needs to help drive innovation into the market faster, but also being able to collaborate better and provide more efficiency across both development, operations, test functions as a result. And as the slide says, we're seeing about 40% of projects at the moment that are being run are being driven in an agile fashion. Also, we're seeing a big rise of cloud. Now, cloud is obviously impacting us in two ways. One is obviously the systems and capabilities we use to help us deliver, but also being in an enterprise architecture, it's actually being able to combine composite cloud service with on-premise applications that help to deliver business value. So we're seeing about a 50% rise and demand from the market at the moment within cloud enterprise architectures. And then latterly, the last thing in terms of the pace of change is around mobile. So in the last 3 years, there's been exponential growth in that market, in the view of what mobile can do for us as an organization, both from an internal bring your own device perspective, making the applications we use for a business perspective more relevant, but also at the same time, what can we do from a new services, new approach to the market, try and increase customer demands by providing key services and capabilities to our consumers to help us actually extend the reach of our application technologies to get into the hands of more consumers and more people than we have had before. So we're seeing about a 4-to-1 project dynamic at the moment where most applications are being built with a mobile front end.
Yeah, Toby, let me mention a little bit about mobile, and first of all, introduce myself a little bit. My name again is Michael Cooper, and I recently joined HP. Prior to HP, I actually ran testing and quality assurance and non-production infrastructure at a large wireless carrier in the U.S. And I've been doing testing for 15 years, and these trends that you're talking about are real. When I was running testing at T-Mobile for the last 4 years before I joined HP, we were moving to Agile, and I had been using Agile for many years. but what I'm seeing is it becoming more and more mainstream, and the dream of DevOps becoming real. And these are areas that HP is investing in quite a bit. In terms of cloud that you mentioned, also with service-oriented architecture, there is a move towards hybrid, and on-premise applications, cloud applications, hybrid, and so forth. And we're going to talk about all that. And then finally, mobile. Gardner says in the next few years there will actually be more mobile applications than there are on the PC. In terms of this particular picture, this is very realistic in terms of what I ran into over the last few years. At T-Mobile, we used to have 4 major billing releases a year based on the retail season, basically, and preparing for that. And a lot of the applications surrounding that, the retail, the POS, the SIVR, and even the back-end systems like SAP, followed that cadence. And something changed, and basically we had to move faster, and we did a lot of things to do that. And we were having we really started moving towards monthly releases, and then some of the web applications started to do weekly releases. And when I left T-Mobile in November of last year, we actually had 2 content releases a day, and we were releasing, mobile applications in an agile style with nightly builds and everything. So, and this is not just my experience. I know Toby, you lead business development there in Europe for HP, and you meet with a lot of customers. What's your experience in terms of the increasing number, the increasing velocity? Is that something you're seeing as well?
Yeah, no, definitely, Mike. And I think when I talk to the customers and when I meet with customers today, the business demand is increasing. So we've got an increase in business demand to use applications and technology as competitive weapons to help us attract more users. And those new systems are being built, as you said earlier, in a kind of mobile fashion. And we know as consumers of mobile services and products that they move at exponential speeds. The updates and the regular the patching and fixing of issues that we see on the mobile environment is very different to a core system. So what I'm seeing is a lot of new front-end cloud mobile new business applications moving at exponential speed, and that's just going to increase. And what I'm also seeing is a little bit of the blurring of the boundaries back into the legacy systems that we've seen, where some of the more modern practices around application delivery are also trying to be rolled out on top of those old systems as well. So we're starting to think about maybe breaking down some of the change management cycles within ITIL with more of a DevOps focus, etc. So yeah, I see it in both dynamics, but I'm seeing much more in the mobile front ends and the new business systems, and then an uptake of the existing systems, legacy systems, where people want to get much more frequent releases done.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide.
So Mike G, there you go.
Oh, there it is, a slight delay. I had tried it. Let's find out, we talked about the different types of testing that we've done in the past. Let's take a poll, and I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll and find out from the people in the audience what type of applications you guys are testing. Okay, and we'll take a few seconds to do this. So, like I mentioned, most recently, when I was doing the testing, we also did something called end-to-end testing. We tested from the front end, like the mobile or web or SIVR, through the APIs, the web services, and then into the back end, the ERP like SAP and the CRM tools and so forth. And then in the middle, there's all kinds of, you know, a dog's breakfast of technology that could be legacy, client server, mainframe, SIVR, and then sometimes even there are embedded technologies where you know, it's embedded in things like your car. And I know that we have several customers that do use HP tools to test embedded systems. So what I'm seeing is there's a lot of web and web services testing, and a good amount of mobile testing. I'm actually looking live. I'll give you guys just a few more seconds here, and then I'll go ahead and launch this. It looks like just about everybody has participated, and I'm going to go ahead and share this. So let's talk about it for a second. You know, web and web services are definitely the majority here, and then second, enterprise. Third, it looks like, you know, your legacy, but mobile is catching up, and then just a few groups doing embedded. So very telling, very telling. What do you think of this this spread, Toby?
No, I think like you say, Mike, I think what we're seeing is there's a huge amount of change in the modern front-end dynamics, but that's putting increasing pressure on the traditional systems that we have from an integration perspective and reuse perspective of the services that are already live. So it doesn't surprise me in terms of what we're seeing, but there is now an increasing, you know, dependency on the legacy systems, the enterprise systems we use to be able to provide the new interactive, you know, user-rich experience tools, access to the right data and environments to get the information to the customer.
So, Toby, let's go ahead and move the slide forward and talk about a concept that we've been working on, which is called Enterprise Agile. And it's really the idea of taking all of the benefits of moving quickly, iterations, agile, for all different things, like I mentioned, whether you're building a new application, you have minor releases, hot fixes, you're doing mobile apps, extensions, ERP upgrades, you know, application modernization, data center migrations, all these different things that we have to do is break them down into iterations and use more of an agile style, and we're going to talk a lot about what that means in a minute. But the benefits are clearly improved business and IT alignment, and that's really what it's all about, is making sure that we're delivering what the business wants in a timely fashion, reducing cycle time and project rework. You know, it is so frustrating as a tester and a test leader to work on something for a while and then, you know, have to redo it or rebuild it in a different technology several times. And you know, if you do it right or close to right in small chunks, you know, you can get real-time feedback. And accelerating time to market is important. You know, there's so much competition out there. If you're not moving fast, somebody will pass you. And of course, you know, cost is always an issue. So let's go ahead and move into it and find out what true agility means and what it demands. Go ahead, move to the next slide. Oh, there we go. It's a little slow today. We need true agility with our slide set, I think.
I think you might have control, Mike. So
you know, I'm hitting the arrow button and nothing's happening. I don't want to do it too many times because, yeah, go ahead and there you go. So I've heard a rumor, Toby, that you have somewhat of a lead foot, and you have true agility when it comes to driving. And one of the stories that I heard about agility when it comes to driving is it's not only the fact that you're able to you know, speed up really quick. Okay, that's one thing in terms of velocity, right? But you need the quality that you know that, you know, when you take a hairpin turn, your brakes are going to be there if something goes wrong, or you know, your steering is going to be, and your wheels are going to be able to keep you on the road. So you can't have that velocity unless you have the confidence that your system will handle it. And
Absolutely.
I've worked on several projects where you work fast, but it ends up the whole project gets delayed because you're moving too fast. And what I found is there's that fine balance that we have to find to achieve true agility, which is balancing the velocity and quality. Toby, any thoughts on that? And I know we're going to talk next about kind of what gets in your way, the obstacles, and I'll let you walk through that.
Yeah, I think, Mike, I think it's pretty key. I think, let's be honest, I think the majority of people on this call are probably in the testing profession, right? So they understand why we've needed to implement more and more testing quality assurance practices throughout the period of, web development of applications. And what was web? Web was effectively the ability for us to move the front end of our systems to a more open source community. It allowed us to push the front end customer engagement channel out to packages that could be easily accessed external to our firewalls. And as we did that, we realized that those demands on the business in terms of failure, when you put the applications in the hands of your consumer, are pretty bad if you get it wrong. So that's why we've seen the rise of quality. Now, if you turn that on its head and suddenly say, I want to drive velocity, and I want to move more as a regular change model, I want to introduce changes and iterations and new functionality into the enterprise estate, why should we then subsequently impact the quality of the final release? It actually means, in the modern dynamic of what we're seeing, that quality becomes even more stronger as a need. We absolutely need to drive velocity, we absolutely need to drive speed, and help get the business, the applications and services live into the domain to try and increase the business demand and the high level, our revenues of the company's success. But at the same time, if we get it wrong now, there's so much competition for those applications and services that can be brought to market by our competitors, and we get it wrong from a quality perspective, we're going to severely impact the business dynamics. So absolutely, when you're driving Agile, when you're driving DevOps, when you're driving all of those things, the biggest issue that we see is really trying to drive the balance between speed and the quality of the final application.
Okay, so let's get into the particulars of what gets in your way. And do you want to walk through this, and I can add some color as needed?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's look at what we've built up over time, and I don't think there's anything wrong with what's happened to date, but we are in a certain situation where we've constructed an operational model that doesn't necessarily meet the demands of the business today. So we've operated and we've created silos, which has effectively created stovepipes. Whether we like it or not, whether the development team was the same as the testing team, whether the operational change management teams were the same as the testing teams, etc. We've got silos of activity, and we definitely need to try and increase the collaboration across those silos and the visibility across those silos as well. Then we've got these whole dependencies, the dependencies from an infrastructure and architecture perspective. We've built systems that are changing so quickly today. I mean, I joined the IT world about 20 plus years ago because I liked the speed of change that was in the market. But it's astronomical the amount of change and architectural model changes and new systems that are coming in, and we have to try and help manage those interdependencies of all those systems. Then we've still got pretty much a manual effort in testing, and the majority of the customers and people that I talk to, when we're actually talking about testing activity, there isn't a complete view which someone says, I've got an automated test regression pack in place. A lot of companies have struggled to implement that and keep it up to date and maintain that, so therefore there's still a lot of manual effort required for testing. And as you move into that model where you've got these dependency models and you don't really know where the system issues are, you've still got to manually look at those systems and understand what's there to be able to try and find those defects and those problems. And then on top of that, I don't know one head of apps delivery or QA test manager that I've spoken to that says they have all the information at hand that they need. They use tools like the HP Quality Center tools to help them do that, but there's still a manual effort to bring together all these different sources of information into one environment, into one area. And that's what I'm seeing when I'm talking to the customers when I'm out on the road and speaking to people.
Well, super, Toby. You know, and you know, this is a current situation in a lot of places, but it doesn't have to be that way. And we're not telling you this to just, you know, remind you of some of the challenges. Let's first of all hear about your challenges, and then we're going to talk about empowering the tester and some of the new things with a new style of IT that helps battle some of these challenges. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the poll and find out what your biggest quality challenge is, and we're going to go from there. So let me go ahead and find out what your biggest quality challenge is and launch that, and give you a few seconds for that. So as that's coming in, wow, people are right on top of this. It's neck and neck. You know, a lot of requirements issues, a lot of test environment issues, and I believe this is multi-select, so you could actually select more than one. And the interesting thing about is that there's only 2% that says none of the above. You know, and these are ones I just put together, you know, myself based on my own experience with some of my biggest challenges were leading a testing group and growing up from being a manual tester, moving up to automated and performance. I think the popcorn slowed down a little bit. Let me go ahead and close that. And when I say popcorn, I mean the answers have stopped coming in. I'm going to go ahead and share that, and let's discuss it. So, you know, requirements issues is an age-old thing, and I guess Agile and the idea of user stories and then related tasks breaks that down and speeds that up. Now, you know, I'm not just talking about Agile theoretically or just as, you know, in my experience as a senior director. I actually worked on Agile teams hands-on and am a certified Scrum Master. So a lot of the requirements issues are still out there, especially if you're using a traditional waterfall SDLC, and that's just a matter of communication, and that goes to the discussion that Toby mentioned in terms of silos, that things move fast, and unless you're working, collaborating very quickly, it's hard to get that. In terms of unrealistic timeframes, you know, I hate to say it, but we need to get used to it and figure a way to get past that, and we're going to talk about some of that in a minute. Test environments doesn't surprise me at all. I was out at, and we'll talk about that as well, and lack of testing tools. There's a lot of new technology coming out there, and you know, testing vendors are struggling sometimes to keep up, and sometimes it's a matter of keeping up. Sometimes it's a matter of trading and inconsistent use, or trying to use, you know, cheap tools that aren't suited for the enterprise. So anyways, we'll get into this. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to go ahead and hide this, and we'll continue on and talk about how we suggest you focus on enabling velocity and quality. And I'm just going to walk through these real quick, and then we're going to go into detail on each one. So like I mentioned, the key is collaboration. Where you have test environment issues, one solution that some of our customers are really getting a lot of benefit out of in the last few years is virtualization. And T-Mobile is getting into that as well when I was finishing up. Automation. And automation isn't just, you know, running your regression tests. It's automating things like provisioning your test environments. It's automating creating your test data. It's automating, you know, the monitoring and the test management process. So there's a lot of that. And then analytics and insight. And we're investing a lot in this area at HP. And something I'm very passionate about, you know, I had actually been been very, before I worked at T-Mobile, I worked at Fair Isaac and Equifax, which are focused on analytics, and the world is changing and focusing on getting that information in real time, and we'll talk about that as well. So let's dig into each one of these topics one by one, starting with collaboration. And in terms of understanding the roots of Agile, and probably a lot of you are experiencing it now. A lot of it is around self-forming small and nimble teams, and the business rules tend to be things that you can fit on a sticky note, and break it down to bite-sized chunks. Very fluid teams, and when I did true Agile, we were co-located in one room. And that worked very well. I have worked on teams using Scrum that do a Scrum of Scrum with people all over the world as well, and we'll talk about how to enable that. Technology, not necessarily a single stack, but some of the Agile teams started that way, and then workflows could be simple, could be complex. Some of the folks that wrote that are really into Agile will say it's for complex projects because you really need to be working tightly, and then co-located. So this is kind of the ideal situation for Agile, whereas the enterprise demands something different. When I led testing at T-Mobile, for example, we had at our peak up to 600 testers around the world, and hundreds of applications. Sometimes we had SLAs. We had every type of technology you can imagine and then one. And a lot of these things were very intricate and, as I mentioned, global. So, in terms of intricacy, there's a term that I want you guys to get, to understand, and probably a lot of you guys have heard this. It was popularized by a guy named Jeffrey Moore in a book, Crossing the Chasm, and it takes the two types of applications, or it takes applications, breaks them into systems of engagements like a mobile phone, web, or a tablet, where you're interacting with this on a daily basis, and the users are interfacing with this, your UI, and then your systems of record, whether it's a banking application, a mainframe, SAP, a CRM, and these things can't even be in the cloud. And the truth about it is that you have to be able to get that end-to-end picture and end-to-end testing across the systems of engagement and systems of record. So Toby talked about this idea of silos, and I'll give the example at T-Mobile. We used to have we had an SAP testing team that focused on SAP, and we had a web testing team, for example. And both would run transactions on the web, and then they would validate them on the back end. And what we said was, if we could combine those teams and have an end-to-end test that went all the way through, we could reduce a lot of redundant testing. And it turned out that we did, and we reduced the post-production defects through automation and a lot of things quite a bit. And in fact, by a very big number, by getting those teams to really collaborate together along with development. So that's one thing I wanted to make sure that we had talked about. Toby, why don't you walk us through just real quickly some of the new tools that are out there, and then we'll go into some of these in a lot more detail and drill into them.
Yeah, sure, Mike. I think I'm going to tell a little bit of a story in the lens of a customer here as well, in terms of how they've actually taken our solutions and helped them. So I've been working for many years now with a company in the UK called Specsavers, which is a retail outlet for optical glasses and contact lenses, etc. If you don't already know them, and effectively what we did, and this is the interesting thing, is Specsavers basically set up a structured testing scenario, a factory approach, if you'd like, as most people do with our technology, where they bring in structured requirements definition and management, automation of that functional performance and testing activity, and then in an enterprise dashboard, the ability to manage that overall cycle. And they managed to then improve the quality and the delivery and the working practices of their applications. So they had project managers using the tools, they had functional test architects, their performance testers, the head of quality, etc., using the tool set. But what they found was it was very lightly used by the development and the testing and the agile project teams. And they had a project within their business that came on board with a need for agile, wanted to deliver agile practices. So it was very much from a development and project management perspective, being able to lighten the load from a requirements perspective, being able to get the task management working within the development community and executing across that. And we've got a tool set called Agile Manager. It's an agile project management tool that allowed them to deploy this front end, this capability to let the agile teams work within their current operational models. So using user stories, using task management, using backlogs, using sprint planning, etc., to be able to modernize the way they wanted to deliver that project, but it also then critically integrated into the test factory activity that the existing teams were doing. So from a integration, final quality gate understanding before you push off and drive that into production, they could still maintain all of the rigor and structure they put into that process. So we've got all of these tools available to help people manage this in an enterprise fashion. And I suppose the only one I really haven't kind of touched on is, as you said, Michael, is this whole service virtualization piece. And what we're seeing our customers do is being able to use the service virtualization capability to effectively emulate or virtualize the service architecture. So not only decouple complex architectural models when they're building test environments for the integration test phase, but also supplying these services back to development teams at the early stages of the life cycle so they can continue to do development work, unit testing work, etc. And we're following the path of delivery to ensure that we've captured as many defects as we can at the earliest stages of that software delivery chain.
Thank you, Toby. So, yeah, and we're going to go into some of these solutions in a bit more detail and tell some particular stories and possibly go into some customer success stories as well, or testing success stories. In terms of dev and test management, you know, a lot of you know and love Quality Center or ALM and have been using it for many years. Over the last few years, we've made a lot of improvements in that area and actually brought in a technology called ALI, or Application Lifecycle Intelligence, to allow you to actually get information directly at the code level, what's changing, and allowing integrations into dev IDEs, like your from like Visual Studio, like Eclipse, and so forth. So the developers can work directly in their IDEs, and we're getting a lot more traction that way. Plus, we can measure things like code coverage, and really understand what's changing in the applications.
Yeah, I think that's a key point, Mike, that I didn't mention is, like you say, is in the Specsavers environment, they do use application lifecycle intelligence to bring in not only the bidirectional flow of information between the project planning requirements piece into the developer's IDE, but they're also using it to see changes at the code level and builds that have been made available for when the testing activity needs to be carried out. So, as you say, connecting in that enterprise ecosystem of people to be able to see at any point in time anything that's moving through that application delivery chain. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm gonna just mention one more thing on the slide and move on. Just for the sake of time, we wanna make sure we have time to get through all of the information and have time for questions. There is one piece that a lot of people don't know about, which is the executive scorecard, which is not only for executives. In this case, the person we show using it as the VP of applications, but it hooks into not only your quality tools, but some of your finance tools, some of your monitoring tools, your dev tools, and your infrastructure tools, and gives a single pane of glass in terms of understanding how IT is working, and doing that, and you can do that on a tablet and everything. We're not going to focus on that in this presentation, but I just wanted to mention it because I think it's important. A lot of companies have actually built this type of thing on their own, but this one comes out of the box and works with not only HP stuff, but non-HP as well. I'm going to dig a little bit more into Agile Manager, and we actually use this, or I actually use this on a daily basis. For example, I even considered, preparing for this presentation, a user story, and creating the deck, creating the polling questions, and assign stuff to me and Toby and so forth, and making sure that we're all prepared to do it. We broke it down into a user story, put it into a sprint. You can see it provided visibility, and we're working in a way. Toby's in England. I'm all over the world, but this week I'm at home in Atlanta, Georgia. And instead of having a sticky note on my board, we have a virtual sticky note. And oops, let me just close that and go ahead and click. I forgot I had embedded a movie. We're not going to show that. And I clicked in just the wrong place. So this is an example of a task board. And you see the backlog items and so forth. And this is similar to what you'd have with the sticky notes, but they have the burn down charts and the burn up charts and all that type of stuff. Place for sprint retrospectives, your backlog, all of the stuff that you might expect, plus the dev insight that we mentioned, so you can see what's actually changing and not get any surprises as a tester and have that real collaboration. Let's move along and get into automation and talk about how that helps. In terms of automation, one of the rules that I've used for a while is the S+1 or sprint +1. So you get a new application. Let me just walk through this a second. And you have several different components. A lot of times you'll actually have the services before you have the GUI components, although it may not be fully stable. So you write your business component or your business process test or your test. You understand what it is. You understand the API, and let's say if you're technical, you understand the WSDL and what the message is going back and forth, and you can test those things. And you can also write, in the second iteration, you can start automating that. Okay, and then in the second sprint, you're going to have more stable more stable components, whether those are GUI or back-end components, and you automate that. So basically, simple concept is you're always automating, in one sprint after, and then you don't get too far behind with your automation. And this seems to work. Then this shows how your regression test bed builds up over time, and you also need to remember to prune it. Ideally, and I've been in this situation before, where you have the continuous integration, where during the nightly build, it actually kicks off the smoke test or build verification test automatically and runs it sometimes on multiple environments, and this builds up over time. Now, one of the things I have personally experienced is sometimes where you have teams working in Agile methodology. Not only is there technical debt, but that builds up, but also performance tends to slow down over time. So you need to have a hardening sprint and a performance testing sprint to really then optimize for performance testing. We're going to talk about that as well. So let's talk about one more thing, which is which I'm a huge fan of, and I'll mention something and I'll let Toby talk about it because I know he's passionate about it too. Is, you know, a lot of us, you know, grew up doing manual testing, and I started that way as well, and I still do some of it. And you know, I think, and there's this whole school of context-driven testing and using heuristics. You know, having testers be empowered, and I'm all for it. You know, improving the skill of the tester, but also giving them superpowers to do more than you could do just on your own. So HP Sprinter, which comes with Quality Center and ALM at no additional cost, allows you to do exploratory testing, and it records what you're doing along the way. It's kind of like a DVR for testing. So it takes screen prints. It actually makes human-like steps, readable steps. And the superpowers I was talking about is it has things like scanners. So you can do spell checks. You can do link checks. You can do, you know, these type of things that are just built in and allows you to do that. You can auto-populate data, you know, if you're running the same test over and over again, and you can generate tests. But as you're doing the exploratory testing, it keeps track of what you're doing. So if you find something, you have a record, you know, and kind of a storyboard of what happened. So the developer can't say, oh, I can't reproduce it on my machine, or they could, but you can say, okay, here's what we did. And then if you really like the steps that you did, you can make this into a regression test. One other feature I want to mention with this is if you're testing on multiple browsers, you can actually run a test and have the same test being run on multiple machines using different browsers, for example, or even in different languages, and it's a technology we call mirror testing. And this is one of the new style of IT things that we mentioned, and you know, just wanted you to know about it. Toby, any additional thoughts on exploratory testing with a tool like Sprinter?
No, I mean just from a basis of you know, how we can automate that whole cycle, Mike. And I think one of the things that we need to be mindful of is in modern delivery is there isn't always going to be time to author you know, an automation test at the start of the cycle. So you know, one of the things that we're trying to promote with this is kind of a maturity approach to automation, where you start with mind-sweeping type of exploratory test activity. But as you're doing it, the tools are allowing you to pick up what you've done, as you say, promote those as candidates as regression scripts that you want to have, whether that be automated or manual steps, and then promote that back to the tools that can help you actually record and put the framework together to actually help you accelerate that automation cycle. Because one of the things I think we need to have is if we cannot allow ourselves to increase the speed of the testing activity, we're just going to simply fall behind on the business demand.
Yep, that brings us back to automation, and I'm just realizing the time, so we're going to have to speed up just a little bit, and I'll cut out some of my personal comments and stories here. You know, in terms of automation, it really has to be on the back end and the front end, and the HP tools allow you to do that. We have a tool that we came out with a couple of years ago called Unified Functional Testing that allows you to record on both the GUI and on the API level as well. And we're going to walk into some of these components as well. And I'll talk about that while we let you guys answer the poll. I'm going to go ahead and open the poll and mention another solution that I saw on that slide, which is about scriptlets testing. We do have we have a technology that works with our existing technology that allows you to define your test data in, let's say, a spreadsheet or populate a spreadsheet, and be able to run automated tests using more of a framework or keyword approach, so the subject matter experts can just fill in the data rather than doing descriptive programming. So it's interesting. I'm actually seeing. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. I think. Well, we got a few more people answering. Oh, it's changing quite a bit. I'll wait a second. But we're seeing a lot of companies which do user acceptance testing, and they're not as trained as some of the testers who are on the phone here in the testing rock stars that we have. So that approach with the spreadsheet works well with them, and we can provide more information on that if you need during the question and answer period. I'm going to go ahead and close and share this. So it's not a huge surprise that most companies are less than 10%, more than 50%, and that's actually very consistent with what we've seen in our studies, including the World Quality Report. And we need to improve on that. We're going to try to help you do that. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. Toby, you have anything to say about that?
No, I think it's, like you say, Mike, I mean, just looking at the time, we probably need to kind of move forward.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, good.
So I think what I wanted to talk about next, Mike, is just a simple view of something that we've done, and we talked about mobile as a dynamic. So Mike mentioned unified functional testing as a unique tool that allows you to combine GUI and service testing in a single environment. Well, what we've also done with the UFT tools, unified functional testing, is extend it for mobile. So from what you're seeing on the right-hand side of this screen, these are real devices in the cloud that we're connecting to, that we're operating in a cloud fashion and carrying out the steps and the activities. And the good thing from that is perspective that we can actually run the scripts that we create against those mobile environments across devices. So we're helping to move the functional testing, the automation of functional testing, not just onto the web platforms, but onto the mobile platforms as well. Mike, I don't know if you wanted to input anything there.
No, I actually use this type of technology at T-Mobile. One thing that I would mention is in the World Quality Report, it mentions that there was a huge increase of mobile testing from 33% in 2012 to over 55% this year, and that's really the growth area is a lot of mobile testing. So this is a great technology that uses not only kind of object recognition, but also the GUI automation as well. So it uses both technologies. One of the few solutions that do that, and allows you to really do a good job of functional automation. And the solution that we have actually has devices in the cloud. So you don't have to buy every single device. You just kind of check it out and say, okay, I need an Apple 5S and I need an Android Samsung Galaxy 4. You don't have to actually buy these. So that's the other thing I wanted to mention. All right. So let's go ahead and move forward. I'm having trouble clicking. There you go. We just came out with a new version of LoadRunner, and LoadRunner is the industry-leading performance and load testing tool, along with Performance Center. And one of the things that we did was we really focused on more protocols, including a lot of focus on mobile. So you can actually record on a device and do load testing in that way. And we have a community, the HP Live Network, where people share their scripts and ideas, and partners share solutions as well. But don't forget about performance testing and it's very important. We also have a partner who helps us emulate different network speeds and so forth. So called Shunra, and we've improved the integration with that, and also improved with our virtualization tools. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to virtualization. So you want to walk through the story real quick?
Yeah, I think it's very simple. I think when we look at a transaction from a business process perspective, there's multiple services we're going to call on throughout that end-to-end transaction. Some of them are going to be in the products that we manage. Some of them are going to be external to the products we manage. Some of them might be cloud packages. Some of them are by third-party services that we call to execute the end-to-end transaction. Maybe a shipping service from FedEx or someone like that. But when we look at that complex end-to-end transaction, all of these got interrelationships, and all of these have got potentially costly delivery in terms of the end-to-end test case that we need to run. So when we bring that together, and what we have, and I think we've referenced this a couple of times, is we've got a service virtualization capability that allows you to both record the physical service when it's live and package that up for reuse. It helps you design it. It's got a design frame as well where you can either input WSDL files, those types of service definition files, and actually build those up in that way, or you can actually manually build up the service interactions. And once you've done that, you can package those service stubs up and then make them available for teams within the other products in the portfolio. So you can call on a virtual service from Load Runner, from Unified Functional Testing, etc., to run your testing against if the physical system isn't available. And that, there's lots of different architectural constraints that we're trying to remove with this. Whether you've got a mainframe system that's live, that's only available for 15 minutes in the evening, whether you've got a third-party transaction that you pay per use, whether you've got simply systems that aren't developed yet. And what we're seeing is that there's a huge uptake of virtualization of that architecture to help people keep up with the pace of change and continue the testing practices that they need to carry out.
Absolutely, Toby. So, yeah, I think this is a trend, and HP is not the only company that does this, by the way. And I did a good amount of research on this at my last company, and what I found, this is my own personal research, is that this tool seems to be easier to use. You don't have to be a Java developer to use it. We actually built it from the ground up to do this, and it's relatively straightforward. It has a growing number of protocols, including SAP in the latest version, or some aspects of SAP, along with web and a bunch of other things. This is a real problem, and it helps enable you as testers to increase your velocity by testing earlier in the process, and overcoming some both test data and environment challenges. It's not a silver bullet, but it is another tool in your arsenal if you have it at your company. Let's move forward and just hit the last slide. I don't think we're going to have time to go into the detailed customer success stories, but as you can see, and this is just a small, fraction of customer success stories from around the world. I mean, we have, for example, on Quality Center, over 5,000 different customers with hundreds of thousands of users, and third parties like the Gartner Magic Quadrant. We're still, by far the industry leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, and used in almost every industry around the world. So anyway.
Why don't I try and do the 30-second snippet of both case studies?
Oh, if you can do it, let's do it.
Yeah, so I think this one is just this is a service virtualization case study that we're working with an organisation in Turkey called TTNet, and the key thing here is the amount of time it's taken to actually set up the virtualization. So it took about 6 weeks to set up 45% test coverage with virtualization, and they think they can drive that higher. But the key stat is that it's saving around $50,000 a month in terms of cost, in terms of provisioning test environments. And I think from the Specsavers one, we've kind of covered this already. I think I covered it earlier in the presentation, but just to see some of the cost benefit savings that the team's actually supplying on the slide, like 20% reduction in the overall release costs, and an improvement of quality and faster delivery cycles.
Super. Okay, let's go to next slide. So if you want to learn more about these things, you can actually try Agile Manager for free. There's a free 30-day trial. You can download our other solutions or white papers that you can see, and you can join the HP Live Network or the HP Discover Performance community. You could also, I do a lot of blogging on the future of testing at hp.com, and also you can follow me on qacooper.com on Twitter. Now, we do have time for questions, and by the way, Toby and I will both be in Sweden, in Gothenburg for the for EuroSTAR. So we will look forward to meeting you in person and hope to shake your hand and learn more about what you guys are doing.
Okay, thank you,
Next
Toby.
slide. Okay, Derek.
Thank you, Toby and Michael, for that webinar. We're just going to go through a few questions now, like you just mentioned. I'm just going to open up my screen here. You bear with me for 1 second. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now we're just going to go through a few slides first before we get to the questions. So now, if you haven't already typed your questions, you can do so in the questions field in your control panel. This webinar, recording of this webinar, will be available on the EuroSTAR website in the EuroSTAR webinar archive. You can also get access to the slides there. And if you join the EuroSTAR community, you'll get access to not only these webinars, but there's also videos, ebooks, podcasts, presentations, and more. This year's conference is taking place in the Swedish Exhibition and Congress Center in Gothenburg, Sweden, from the 4th to the 7th of November. And there's already over 750 attendees already confirmed, so we hope you can make it. And finally, here's an award that is being run by HP. It's called the Quality Star Award. And if you want to be able to chance of winning this award, you just visit the EuroSTAR website. There's a short questionnaire to fill out. And the winner will be awarded an award at the conference. And they will also be given a free EuroSTAR conference pass worth €1,775. So now we're just going to look at a few of the questions. And the first question we have here is, how do companies do load testing of mobile applications and emulate different network speeds?
Yeah, so, good question. We just mentioned that briefly in terms of, we do have an integration with Shunra, and what that does is, if you're testing, let's say 4G, 4G LTE, 3G and 2G, you can actually dial that in to your performance test, and it accurately simulates that type of network configurations, and that's how we do it. Next question.
Yeah, the next question I have here is, what is business process testing?
Toby, you want to take that one?
Yeah, business process testing is very simple. It's basically aligning up your sequential steps in your testing process to your business processes, and being able to look at the serialization of those steps as individual components within the test case. So when you need to change a particular component or part of that end-to-end test case, you change it in one location, and then you push it out to all of your testing, your testing environments and your test packs that you need to run that particular component in. And the ideal sort of thing would be like enter an order, pick up the order, et cetera, and sequentially build out those steps through an end-to-end process test.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that covers it. Yeah.
Right. The next question I have is, does HP have a SaaS option for Quality Center, Performance Center, and ALM?
Yes, there certainly are. So SaaS would be software as a service, and for all of these things, and even the Agile Manager we mentioned, there are SaaS options. So if you don't want to go through all the administration and so forth, we can host it for you, or some of our partners can host it. So yes, those are available. And at this time, the Agile Manager is in the cloud. And by the way, it's not. It's one of these things that's actually very reasonably priced. You know, at just and you can actually see the price very transparent on a website at a certain number of pounds or dollars or euros per month, rather than more of a subscription model rather than traditional licensing. And you can find that online. Go ahead. What's the next question?
The next question I have is a testing center of excellence still relevant as companies move to agile development?
Yes, I would say yes. I'm very passionate about the testing center of excellence. I think that there are some things that make sense to centralize and have a community of practice, whether it's automation, performance testing, intake, end-to-end testing. People are forming mobile testing centers of excellence. And then there are some things that make sense to be embedded in the team. We call them scrum testers. People call them all kinds of different things. But basically have a group that's embedded in the team, but then also have a center of excellence that allows career growth and training and some standardization across an enterprise. So. Good question.
Yeah, I think, Mike, what I'm seeing within that as well is maybe a softening of the boundaries of what the TCOE is, what the Testing Centre of Excellence actually is. So where we've created functional units to carry out testing practice, modern dynamic might move more towards more of a specialised model where there's a grasp and understanding of the enterprise architecture, the standards we want to set out, the test processes we want to run, specialized testing functions that the business can't handle itself, but then being able to let the actual delivery teams carry out some of the activities whilst following the standards and patterns that we've laid out. So I think the modern dynamic from a testing center of excellence is going to evolve from what we traditionally designed to a different business model in the future.
Good point. Good point.
The next question I have here is, quality is different to all stakeholders. What is the definition of quality being used?
So I'll take an answer on this and I'll hand it to Mike. When I first got involved in the testing market a long time ago now, I attended one of the test management forums in the UK, and the same question was asked at that forum. And I think the problem is it is based on the requirement of the business. What is the business requirement for quality? And now, what metrics are you going to use? Is it the number of defects in production? That's one measure of quality. Or is it the scoring that our end users would give us on the experience of the applications? Is it the performance of those applications, etc.? So I think quality evolves over time. I think there is no singular definition of end-to-end quality at the moment. I think there is a lot of different views. But I think the key factor is, for anybody who wants to uptake this, is really we need to understand what our business looks at as quality, and then start measuring the functions that we're putting in to derive value back to that business need.
Toby, I think you hit right on it, and that's really, it's really about two things. It's about the end users and it's about the business. So the types of things that we thought about at T-Mobile is, how is IT or applications impacting either the end users or the business? Are we, by changing the software, are we causing more returns on the web or people to drop out of the shopping cart? Are we increasing or decreasing calls to care? Are we increasing hold time, on the SIVR? And looking at those business metrics to understand those things in terms of quality. So those, I think having a business or a user perspective is a really good way to look at it, rather than just counting defects like you mentioned, Toby. Also, while we're looking it up, I like that TCOE question. I just looked up something in the low quality report I happen to have next to me, and actually based on a survey, the number of TCOEs that are actually active and working and fully functional, according to the people who responded to the survey, just like we did the survey today, but for 1,500 people, is actually increased threefold in 2013 over 2012. So just 6% said they had a working fully functional TCOE in 2012, and this year it's over 19%. So there's actually an increasing trend in that area, even though a lot of companies are also adopting Agile, and that's growing as well. Next question.
Okay, we've got a little over time here, so I'll just take one last question. The question I have here is, how do you maintain speed and quality for a project when we know that both may be contradicting to each other?
Yeah, I think that's the age-old question, is that balance. So, we have to figure out what is most important for that project. If, let's say, we've spent marketing dollars and we're we have a sale for the holidays are not going to change because or the ship date, if you've already printed the package, if you're making software or some embedded software, is not going to change. So in that case, we're going to do the best we can. Now, if we have a little bit more flexibility, you may lean towards adding more time to the project or changing scope. So it's really a matter of being pragmatic. Now, I'd just like to reiterate, and I appreciate you staying on this slide. We had the opportunity to sponsor an award, and HP could make it any award we wanted, and this is coming directly out of Toby's budget. And we're paying for somebody to have a path to EuroSTAR because we know that sometimes the testers don't get the recognitions that we approve, that we deserve. And I was a tester for 15 years, so I use the word we. And I encourage you to take 15 minutes of your time to fill out that form, and you could be awarded. And it's only people in Europe, and you guys have a very good chance. This thing ends in 2 days, and we haven't made a final decision yet. So if you get your entry in today or tomorrow, you've got a very good chance of winning a pass. So I would encourage you to do it and get recognized. You guys are all quality rock stars. We hope to meet you in Sweden. We also have an event, an HP event in Barcelona in December. I believe it's the 8th through the 13th. So we hope to see you there. There'll be thousands of people from throughout Europe and around the world learning about the new style of IT and innovation and meeting with your peers and learning best practices like we did today. So hope to see you there. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I know you're all busy. Toby?
That's all from me, Mike, as well. Yeah, just looking forward to meeting some of you at the event in a few weeks' time. And if you want to buy me a beer and bribe me on the prize, that's fine.
Good one.
Yeah, thank you both. Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Toby, for that webinar. And thank you to the attendees as well for attending the webinar and all your questions. The webinar is now over, and goodbye. Take care.